Welcome to Rooted Within with Lily and Dan, a podcast that shines a spotlight on positive change makers, sharing their stories of legacy, inspiration, and impact.
Hello, Dan.
Good afternoon. It's been a while.
I feel like I haven't seen you in forever.
It probably has been.
Yeah, but life just feels off.
I mean,
if I
it's
don't
summertime.
see you.
Well, I mean, like by the time this podcast comes out, it's probably autumn.
What we actually got, we're allowed a break.
We don't think we had one.
I don't really think we had one.
It's just been a bit relentless.
It has been relentless.
But it's good to be back, though.
It's good to be back.
Yeah,
you went
I
away,
missed it.
didn't you?
I did.
Where'd
I'm trying
you
to think.
go?
I've been to a few places. I went to Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire.
Ooh.
I went home to Manchester,
I went
Scotland.
to Sicily, sailing. Ooh.
Anyway, enough about
you
us.
said nothing about my tan.
Yeah, but you always tanned. Especially compared to me, like one of the whitest
This is
people
an
in Dubai.
effort at trying.
Of course. Because I'm just perpetually red.
Well, there you go. On that note, there was a third voice on here.
There was, yeah.
Who is
We have Eileen in our studio today. Welcome.
Hi, guys.
Welcome.
It's so good to have you here.
Yes, good to see you again.
Yeah, I'm going to say because it's really interesting because we jumped on a little pre-podcast catch-up call and then realised that we actually knew each other previously.
Yeah,
like
I mean,
10,
when I first
15
got here.
years ago.
More than that, 2007 when I moved
Yeah,
here.
because that's when I first arrived. I was working at Bareface at the time, and then that's how you said we met, and we
Yeah.
connected.
Bareface has brought a lot of people together.
Yeah, but
Bareface was the
They
agency
were, weren't they?
of, repute at that
Yeah.
time. And
Yeah.
I was a makeup artist, a professional makeup artist and trainer at that time.
Ah, okay.
So working with models and stuff. And of course, when I saw Dan, I was like, oh, model,
me.
Hey,
That's
that
like
was
a smooth. I was going to say like I definitely was a model. It was like my mum always used to tell me I've got a face for radio, so I definitely wasn't a model.
Mom.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But
What?
you've not always been to hair and makeup. I mean, you have many different, I
Yeah.
guess, hats to your professional career.
I have many tools in my
Yeah.
toolbox. So I started off as in marketing,
Okay.
and in IT and in startups, and really exciting time. That's when you had the time to do it because you had no life,
Yeah.
and you could just dedicate it to like all the other people that have no life. It was the early days of the 90s
I
when
was going to say, well, life must have been very different
Yeah.
back then, because obviously, like now it's so fast paced and everyone wants everything now. But back then, like you said, you had time.
Yeah, well, I mean, also I didn't have a family, I didn't have any responsibilities, and it was so exciting because the internet was like
just starting,
new.
right?
Yeah. Nobody was buying things on the internet. Everything was literally like you can't even imagine it for some people that are born after that.
Yeah.
Like my son goes up to the TV screen and tries
to scroll.
Yeah, and it's like,
My
It's like, Mum, it's broken.
My niece has done that before with a book. She tries
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
swipe left, or she tries to like bring the picture out and stuff. It's really interesting.
it
She's
must
6
be
years
so
old.
confusing.
Yeah.
Like everything you see is like you're like a cyborg,
Exactly.
right?
But hold on. So, serial entrepreneur.
Yes.
What were you like as a kid?
Well,
That's a really good
what does
question.
that mean? How can I say chubby would be one.
Weren't we all? Yes.
Were you entrepreneurial as a kid? Were you the type of person that created like I don't know? I used to make like sweet shops.
Yeah.
We'd
Have a
selling things to
lemonade
people.
stand,
Yeah.
right? I think every kid is entrepreneurial because you're forced to play by yourself or with
I
your
sold
siblings.
sunflower
or-
seeds.
Yeah,
That's
we try to
true.
make a buck anywhere we can,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
here's a mud pie. Anyone?
Anyone? It's really tasty.
I used to think about like if I were to make this mud pie and add these like herbs that you find on the mountain side or like on the hill, not
Yeah.
a mountain. It seemed like a mountain next to you, and then I would like trick my older brother, to eating it because he was such a pain, right? Because he was always picking on me,
Yeah.
and then I would immediately feel guilty and be like, oh, well, what if he died? And then I would be like, then how I, like
Then what?
I was too deep of a thinker even then.
Yeah. But then going straight back to you starting off in marketing
Yes.
in the early 90s.
Yes.
Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, I mean, everything was, you have to get a message out,
Yeah.
right? I studied sociology and psychology in school. And, you have to think, group think. That's where that led. A lot of people think because there's the social in it that you want to be a social worker. And that could be some people, but that's not how I really saw it. I just saw it like trying to understand people and how they think and what motivates them.
And marketing must have been very different then because you didn't have social media. So I guess
Absolutely.
people's spending habits, buying habits, the way you influence them would have been completely different.
Yeah, you would have jingles.
Okay. So how did you engage with audiences and customers or clients?
Well, I'm not that old. I mean,
No,
we
but I
had-
mean,
It was.
like-
It was
we
more.
had
It was
CPC.
more. It was more above the line, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
It
I
was
guess
more.
that was
It
the
was TV.
question.
TV
Yeah.
would be more. I think radio was a lot more. TV was number one. I think.
100%.
Yeah.
TV, radio, and print.
Yeah, print was much bigger. Like if
Now-
you were in a magazine.
Well, I guess that was kind of like what I was getting to with the question. It's like, and you know, print in a way is like died a
Well,
death.
all of
in-
those
in
are
a
a bit
way.
obsolete now.
Yeah, because you got everything digital.
Well, you know, when was the last time you watched normal television?
True. You just watch Netflix or, you know, demand TV.
Apple TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so advertising, like that was the biggest way of hitting the masses now.
You got to go where the people are.
Yeah.
And I find that endlessly fascinating. So I think the metaverse is really exciting.
Ooh.
So like if we had this podcast in the metaverse, you know, that's where people are.
Yeah.
I don't really see a difference because if I look at how I spend my day
Yeah.
and how all the jobs in all the different industries, how they spend their day, I'd say 90% of the time, if not more, that you're actually behind a laptop or on the
or a
computer.
screen.
If you work from home and you have children, it really is highlighted because you're like always on the screen. You're telling them, get off the screen. you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're like, hello.
Yeah, but I got to go where the people are. So then you think about security and privacy and those kinds of issues. But as a marketer, how can you be offline? How could you not have your life on there?
Yeah.
And then it gets a little scary because, well, I don't want to say scary, but also opportunity. I saw this video the other day about us putting our kids on.
I saw that.
You know what I'm talking
Come
about?
on, which
Why
one?
don't you
I've not seen
describe
it.
it?
Well, I saw it up to the point where they were just saying,
It was an AI generated
Yeah.
person of your kid
Yeah.
as they were like in their 20s. Let's say that they're like 4 years old now or a
Oh,
baby.
wow.
And then they AI generated, so it would be like older.
You're looking at the future version,
Yeah,
essentially.
so your child is now like 21, 25 years old, and she's talking back at you in this commercial in her own voice because obviously the sound.
Yeah.
And they've recreated this literal person
Yeah.
in a digital form talking straight to you saying, look, this is what you did to me. Because AI can take all these images of your face in all these
Yeah.
different directions as you grow up
Yeah.
and then create an entire life and personality for
Wow.
you that's not yours. It sounds exactly like you. Can get and can call you up and say, I'm kidnapped
Yep.
and like send me money and
It's
you
all
know.
that deep fake stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow, this went in a different tangent to what I was thinking of, but yeah.
Yeah,
it's
identity,
interesting.
right?
Yeah.
And
but like
Uh,
it's stealing identity.
well,
it's like
and
that's
how
it.
can you
And how can you prove it
yeah,
sort of thing?
I mean, when we started giftcertificates.com with my brother in 97,
So that's one of your businesses. 'Cause
Yes.
you mentioned the serial entrepreneur. So you,
well, my brothers, all of us, my
Okay.
brother, my sister, and I. My sister's in the art world. My brother's in all kinds of things.
Yeah.
From,
I'm going to stop and
Yeah.
do a segue question here.
yeah.
You and your siblings are all serial entrepreneurs. Does that come from your parents?
My father was, and I would say so. My
Wow,
mom's a
yeah.
homemaker, but also she had a fashion shop, and we used to go buying around the world. You know, she had designers like Oscar De La Renta and Christian Dior, but back then they were small brands. You know,
now they boomed.
we would go into New York City and we'd go to the showrooms and like
Nice.
buy things. But of course, I was like 10, 11 years
Yeah.
old, so.
Incredible.
And your dad?
My dad also, he was import export. You know, a lot of between Korea.
So was my dad.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
big back then.
Big, huge,
Yeah.
huge.
So he always worked between Korea. My father was Korean.
Yeah.
He always worked between Korea and the U.S. So silverware
Yeah.
or flatware. So if we would every restaurant we go to, he'd look on the back,
Check.
and if it said "Made in Korea," we knew it was his company or
Oh, wow.
their
That's cool.
manufacturing, right? And so American Airlines, if you look at the flatware back when they had flatware,
Yeah.
that was one of their big accounts as well, and just things like that.
Nice. That's cool. But then you said you were in business with your brother. You were about to talk
Oh,
about.
so my brother started, it was his business school concept to
Okay.
have gift certificates.
Yeah.
Like, because there was no reason for you to touch and feel a gift certificate.
Okay.
And as this was like, he graduated, I think, 94 from Harvard Business School.
Yeah.
And that was his thesis because he really was terrible at gifting. And we were being an Asian family, gifting is extremely important in presentation. So I'll give you an example of his terrible gift giving.
Oh, God.
Which would be, and note
think
to,
I'm-
you
I'm the
know,
worst,
the
I think.
audience. Yeah. So he has two sisters, me and my
Okay.
sister. And he would buy like let's say an Estee Lauder, you know, lipstick. So, and you get this big gift with purchase during
Yeah.
the holidays. He would get that and then split it up and give it to us.
I
And-
mean,
or
economical.
He also did like, you know, Memorex. Do you remember Memorex? Those
No.
like cassette tapes.
Okay.
So they would have these giant packs of them. Like you'd have like a pack of 20.
I remember actually, yes. I do
Okay,
remember.
And then he would split that up and give to me and my sister.
shrewd
Very-
businessman.
Very
Shrewd
practical.
businessman.
yeah, I was
Very
gonna say, yeah.
practical.
He's like very economical.
Yeah. So he was terrible.
Okay.
He meant well, but
Yeah.
he got better.
But we were talking about identity and AI, and then you were about to segue into your brother and your
Oh well, that was like
business.
security.
Got
When
you.
when you're your ID. One of the biggest things about gift certificates, it's a digital currency. It's a branded currency. Same thing with rewards, incentives, loyalty, things like that.
Yeah.
So you have to be very careful with fraud and money laundering, and you have to have your own protocols in place. And since it was never done before, you have to do it yourself.
Yeah.
And so we were talking with like, the police, they have their detectives that were on cybercrime. There'd be like 2 people. They wouldn't even look at your case. They were telling them this was like $2 million involved.
Wow.
And this was like not as rampant as it is now. And so when we were talking about AI and how much more sophisticated it is, that's when, I mean, I don't know where it is at this point. I'm not in cybersecurity.
Constantly evolving.
Yeah, it's constantly
So
evolving.
what other businesses have you owned, been involved in, launched, created as a serial entrepreneur?
Well, loyalty, rewards, and incentives is one of them. I'm working with a client at the moment as a consultant as they launch in the UAE, specifically Dubai. But they are a leader in incentives and rewards in Saudi Arabia. So they're about 8 years old.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
And they are basically an ecosystem of loyalty and rewards. They have different apps like for active, like getting your teams to engage each other and then measuring that data. That's one aspect that's called Walla Active. The company or the client is called Walla Plus. And they're doing fantastically because they have first mover advantage in Saudi Arabia. They didn't have Faza or Isa.
Got you.
You know, they are the Faza and the Isa.
Yeah.
And then they have this huge marketplace and then just growing and growing, as you can imagine, because like Dan, I know that you are expanding in Saudi Arabia by leaps and bounds too.
Like people are only just scratching the surface there.
Saudi's like such untapped potential.
Yeah.
I mean, like a country of like 50 million plus people, and I think it's
but
around about that.
then how do you get your money if you're a small business?
Yeah.
You know, I just was at with Crimson Legal, I guess a talk. I don't know, it's not exactly an event, right?
Yeah.
But addressing not specifically Saudi Arabia, but how do small businesses, and we're like 90% SMEs here, right? How do small businesses collect their money? And how do you write your contracts with that?
It's difficult.
But then,
How do small businesses collect their money?
I'm not here to give legal
A baseball bat and a very
No, because I
firm...
literally heard every single one of our listeners going, "How? Tell me."
I mean, we were talking about this.
That's the
just
next
before we started the
podcast.
Yeah, that's
okay? We're
another
talking about
podcast.
relationships right now.
Well, that's the thing, right?
Yeah, I was going to go back. Like, what drives you as a serial entrepreneur?
I think opportunity, but also when you see a solution to somebody's problem, whether it be your own problem or something that you're seeing a gap in the market. And so that probably leads on to the newest
I know.
business.
So, like, how did you end up where you are now?
And where are you now?
And where are you?
There we
Where
go.
am I now? So I've been here in Dubai along with Dan, and I presume you've been here.
I hit the ground in 2009.
Yeah, so
Right?
it's similar timing. It's
Yeah.
like 2007 to 2009.
Absolutely, because the reason why we asked that Dubai question is like, what services or what was the lay of the land like, and then we can relate to each other.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Yeah, that's a very fair comment.
You always have to think
Interesting.
about why you're asking that question.
Yeah.
It's not just so that I can assume how much money you make or
Yeah.
where you live, and so if I want to date you or
But I guess it's also to put into context what Dubai was like at that time.
exactly.
Because back in 2007, 2009, it was a very different place to where it is
People
right now.
bonded very differently.
Yeah, and it felt smaller.
It was definitely
Everyone knew each other, essentially,
And then
in
on
many
top,
ways.
and then on top of that, don't forget, 2008 was when it
crashed.
imploded.
Yeah, the financial
So
crisis.
I arrived after.
Ah,
Well, I
Just
got
after.
employed during,
yeah.
as it was happening. Like I still remember when I was interviewing, and it was sort of second half of 2008, and I was in the UK, and the world was imploding already. And I remember asking you guys, so this
What's going on?"
recession that the world's seeing about Dubai, and the response I got was, "Oh yeah, that won't hit Dubai. This is Dubai."
It hit big.
And it hit big. So
Yeah,
the
wow.
night before I was supposed to fly out, I've told you this story before. My contract got cancelled.
Wow.
So, but then I ended up back out in 2009. So even between the Dubai I experienced when I was going through the interview stage and coming out and meeting people and the way people were compared to what they were when I arrived in January, very different.
So what made you come here? What was that journey?
This is a question, but I love answering this question because I think a lot of people can relate to it, especially women. So when I was looking at leaving London, I was in London for a few years at that time because that had a robust media industry, makeup, what I was doing at that time, teaching on the expert stage, also working with different brands, doing independent film, just makeup is like skin, right? And I was looking to be like, I knew that New York, which is where I'm from, saturated market. I knew that London was already a saturated market. It's very, very difficult to break into that industry, especially if you didn't have a celebrity that you were following at that time, right? This is before social media. Now they pick them based on their followers and their audience. But so things were closing down a little bit more. Everything was getting more consolidated over there. And here in Dubai, literally the only place that had a growing media industry. Yeah. They were opening magazines. They were hiring people.
Because it was almost starting from ground zero. Like there wasn't really much here at that time.
Everything was in startup mode. So I knew that my startup experience and attitude would work here.
I was going to say, that must excite you because of your entrepreneurialism.
Yes. I knew I could add more. I had a lot more to offer. And there were big brands opening here, but they were still in startup mode. So the startup experience, which I could add to, the growing media industry, it was relatively safe as a single female. Coming over here, I could be up and running because of the language. I didn't have to learn a whole new language, although culturally you have to learn the local culture. But that's fine. I'm used to doing that. This is my 9th city and my 4th country.
Oh, wow.
And then it was
opportunity.
It was a hub.
Did you? How were you aware of Dubai? Because like a lot of people, until they ended up in Dubai, they never knew Dubai existed. Do you know what I mean?
A lot of people, I think Dubai didn't exist the way we know it today anyway. And it didn't exist even when we knew it then to the outside world. They were in the midst of learning how to market themselves. And they've done a terrific job since then. And I think that that's one of Dubai's biggest strengths is that they have marketed themselves really well. Build it and they will come, and they did. And that in itself is visionary. And I'm proud to be part of, like a pioneer. I feel like a mini
very
pioneer.
much so.
You know, and in my world, in my universe, and the people that I meet, you're sort of a mini ambassador. Like, why Dubai, right? But your story is part of the Dubai story to that person that you're describing it to. So I'm proud to be part of that.
Nice.
And all my contributions, including having a child here, you know, and him growing up in this environment, and every business that I help in terms of being a marketing consultant, and every person that I meet when I touch their lives, that is part of the Dubai experience, culturally and sometimes literally in terms of building something.
Yeah, because adding to that narrative and adding to the storytelling and the history and the foundation, the culture of what this place is.
Well, as a marketer, that's what we do.
That's what you do.
We're storytelling. And as media, how would you describe yourself? I know events, but you're more than events.
Yeah, but even like with events and things like that, and
it's
you know,
all
the stuff,
storytelling.
it's all storytelling.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And I like what you were saying about being an ambassador. You know, because everything we do is to showcase and to show off. You know, whether it's our client
show
products.
off is
show off in a good way,
right?
Not in a tacky, flashy way, but you know.
But a lot of people think that about Dubai.
True
That's
story.
why we have to be careful.
Yeah, I think maybe in the early days it was very much like that, but it's evolved so much.
I think it was aspirational in that sense, because if you scratch below the surface, there wasn't gold on the streets or anything like that. We had to, and you probably can relate to this, hail down a cab. You'd have to, I go on an interview and it would be like, I'd be waiting on the street for 4 hours until somebody like decided to like pick me up. And this was so cozy back then. This is the village atmosphere that you would meet people would just kind of hitchhike and then share rides, and that was very normal and very it wasn't dangerous at all. I guess it could have been, and obviously in New York it would have been.
I sort of miss it.
Just different. It's quite nostalgic when we're talking about it 15 years ago, 16 years ago.
So you packed your bags and came out?
I packed my, I was in London at the time, so what I did is I looked up Bareface. I looked up all the agencies here. I looked up all the production companies, and I introduced myself to them. And I said, hey, I'm planning on being there at this XYZ date, and I'd like to meet you. I'm thinking about moving there. And, you know, I had a friend that lived here, that had moved here from New York. She worked in finance, though, so completely different atmosphere. And, from there, I got work immediately, so I would fly back, and then I moved here.
Nice.
So was it initially with Bareface, or no? It was a different company you came out with.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, it didn't come out with, like, the nature of my job was like, you know, you do a project by project. You're not
as a freelancer essentially.
And then you moved out here.
And then I moved out here, and that's when, I mean, things were really expensive then, even more expensive than they are now. I don't know if you guys remember.
Very
Like,
true, actually. Yeah,
like
in many ways.
rent was outrageous. As
Oh,
much as
I
it's
do remember-
outrageous.
I do remember it, sorry.
Remember, it was single check.
Yeah,
And one check, yeah.
One check, 60,000 dirhams for a one-bed, not even for a one-bed, sorry, for a studio in International City.
Yeah.
60,000 dirhams, one check.
85,000 dirhams a year for a tiny one-bedroom in Discovery Gardens.
Wow.
And you'd be lucky if you got that.
And
right?
you'd be lucky if you got
well,
that.
let's face it, there was less availability.
I was going
I
to say
just-
supply and demand.
yeah, but I
There was no
remember-
supply and a lot of demand.
I
at that
remember
time.
being taken out to see Discovery Gardens and just went, oh my God, this is Pleasantville. No, I can't. I can't.
But at the same time, there was a lot of expat packages here, so people didn't
True.
have to pay for their.
Yeah.
I mean, you had a ticket home. They had incentives. Now that's completely
Different.
gutted.
Yeah.
You know?
So it's like any normal city
So-
now. You know,
Yeah.
if you
But
want to
that's
move
the
here, then you
thing.
move here and you figure
When I
figure it
came out, no. Bar your ticket home and relocation
You were a pioneer.
allowance, that was pretty much it. Because again, I came in 2009.
Yeah.
right?
But that relocation allowance doesn't even exist anymore
Yeah.
because
But even then, it was with a caveat. You had to be with the company a
Yeah.
certain time or not. You had to pay it back.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what happened in the 15
I mean,
years?
I don't even
oh,
know.
sorry.
Regulation keeps changing.
Yeah, a lot. So what happened in the 15 years? Because obviously you got here like
Almost
2000.
17.
17 years. Oh God, my math is really bad today. 17 years. You
Well, no,
made me
it's not
feel-
quite 17.
Yeah,
so-
almost.
Yeah.
But a lot's happened in that time because you mentioned
yeah.
family, you had a child.
Oh my God. So life changed and what
Okay.
I want from a city changed. So today I wouldn't like move to a city for the same reasons, but we stay for our reasons too. It's a
True.
safe city. It's a community, even though it's a big city and like I can live here for this long and never run into Dan that much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like never since
Well,
really.
BBG, we ran into.
Ah, we did.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, every once in a while, but nothing like where we used to
Yeah.
run
Yeah.
into each other.
Yeah.
Or, you know, that's the thing. Like, that makes it really good, though, because if you had a bad experience, you can kind of like,
Yeah.
I'll never see them again.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm never seeing you again.
But it has changed a lot.
Yeah. So, what was the question again?
So
I'm
you-
sorry.
yeah, what
What
happened-
has the
no,
last 15 years
yeah.
been?
It's-
The evolution of.
Because you mentioned family. You mentioned you had a child.
Yeah.
So, obviously that's life changing.
Yeah, well, a lot of people think that you can't meet somebody here.
Yeah.
And I think you can meet somebody anywhere.
True.
This is something that in every city, everybody says. I mean, Sex in the City came up with, you know, there's Bridget Jones' Diary. There's just on and on. Lots of films out there about people not being able to find love for a
Yeah.
variety of different reasons. And if you have, let's say, a disability, that's even harder. Or
Yeah.
if you have responsibilities like aging parents, that might also, children as well, obviously. So really just picking up on that and seeing how, you know, I guess when you spend time as you grow and as you mature, you notice trends.
Yeah.
And trends would be like people getting older.
Yeah. Especially it gets here now as well because people are staying longer. You know,
Yes.
there was a time when people come for a year or two, but now realistically, we just mentioned we've been here
Because
for
it was
almost
very,
17
very
years.
transient. Very, very
Very.
transient.
Like, it's like-
So
that's-
relationships were transient
Yeah.
too, right? And then, but it was also equally, you're going through an exercise together and you're bonding in a totally different way, right? So it was a hardship to be here.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't easy and you know you don't know who to trust, but now it's less of a hardship, it's more of a destination, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
But relationships change and what you want from a relationship changes as well. So we're talking about relationships because I know I launched a matchmaking and date coaching.
There we go. We got
Yeah, there we go.
Because
there
when
it
we were
is.
talking about the
Boutique
call the other day, I was
agency.
like,
But hold on.
what?
First, for a quick question though. So when you met your partner, did you meet it the old school way or was it a swipe way?
It was old school way.
Old school. We love old
It's
school.
really interesting. I wonder how many people actually meet in the
It was
old-fashioned way.
2009. You know, I met him in 2009.
Oh, okay.
And so it was
At
like
a
one of those
brunch?
across the road. No. Similar. It was an event at the Shangri-La Hotel.
Okay.
It was a financial event, and I was with a girlfriend who was here working in finance,
Mm.
a different girlfriend, and she was like, "Come with me to this event, and then we'll like go have dinner at Zuma or something." I'm
Yeah.
like, "Sounds good,"
Yeah.
you know. And I remember feeling at that time that I'm ready to meet somebody, but like really ready, not
Mm.
like, oh, I want to meet someone, but you know, I remember being just really open-minded about it. Just, I would want to meet you. I would want to meet you.
Yeah.
I wanted to meet people, and I was just open to life, you know, and open to relationships, whether it be a love relationship or friendship or
Yeah.
otherwise. And I felt like that break inside myself when you're just looking at the world with rosy eyes,
Yeah.
right? And I went to this event not thinking I'm going to meet somebody, but just supporting my girlfriend. And he was in this ballroom and staring at me from across the room, and he wouldn't look away. And I thought that was odd. And then I thought, maybe I don't remember having met him.
Yeah, maybe he thinks I'm somebody else.
Yeah, or something. And then eventually I had to go past him, and he's like following me. And I thought that was like, odd.
Yeah.
Bold.
I think it's hot.
And
I mean,
he was
it could
kinda
also be
cute.
slightly creepy.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
It could be creepy,
Like,
but
depends on
at
which way
the
you look at
same
it.
time,
Depends on the crazy eyes,
Yeah.
Yeah,
right?
it depends on the crazy.
And how
Listen,
handsome they are.
when they're good looking, it's not creepy.
Okay.
Okay.
It can be, because you don't know.
I know, I know.
Player,
I know,
Yeah.
but
or was
still.
it Tinder swindler? It could be one of them.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. we
Yeah.
digress.
But like, I find that confidence,
Yeah.
like that, I find that quite attractive.
Well, confidence in anybody is attractive. Let's face
Yeah.
it. Like I like you. Let's see where this goes.
Yeah.
Is an attractive
Yeah.
trait.
Yeah,
you know,
very much so.
You might not know even yourself if you say that or you come across that way. You might not know that this is it, but
Yeah.
let's give it a try.
Yeah.
It's a different attitude. Let's
Yeah.
say.
So you went to walk past him?
And he, of course, was following me like this. And I was like, I'm sorry, have we met before? And he told me his name, which I made fun of. He didn't laugh. But and then I was
must have
like,
gone
oh, well,
down all
maybe
right.
not, right? No, but then we started chatting. We got separated because I guess he was hosting the event, one of the hosts of the
Okay.
event. So people kept interrupting. But by the time that my girlfriend and I were leaving to go, because it was like 6, 7 o'clock in the afternoon. It wasn't like
Yeah.
a late night thing. And I saw him, say right back, like that to whoever he was talking to. Came straight up to me. He's like, "Are you leaving?" I said, "Yes." And he goes, "I'd like to take you to dinner sometime. Can I get your number?" Boom. And I was like,
Mic drop.
Yes.
"All right,
Yeah,
well,
baby.
maybe.
Maybe.
Here's my number."
I'll see. I might be washing my hair.
Oh, see, there is
Yeah.
still romance.
I love it.
I don't know how romantic that was.
I don't know,
but-
like, there's something romantic about it. Is that at least it's not swiping left.
Yeah.
yeah, no, but there's different ways of techniques that,
I guess.
right.
We're
So-
going to get to that.
yeah, and this whole thing is like you got to put yourself out there one way or the other, and you have to have the right attitude, and you can't be like, I'm hurt, don't hurt me, and like laying it on you
Yeah.
to be responsible for my feelings or to be responsible for my hurt and my pain. You enter relationships with the equal amounts of risk.
Yeah.
Don't fool yourself. Even if you say like, oh, I told you from the start that I was hurt by like XYZ and you did that to me too. Like, I'm sorry, but everybody enters the relationship with
Who
equal
was that
risk.
celebrity recently that got absolutely drilled on social media? Seth, what's his name? He sent basically his now ex-girlfriend posted the messages that he sent her.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. He did that wonderful documentary on mental health.
Yeah, and then
I'm not sure.
Seth, it was
No, it's not Seth. It starts with a J. Oh man, I know who you're talking
you know who
about.
I'm talking about, right? And basically
He's
what
a little
he did,
chubby.
Yeah.
He was in Moneyball. He was
he
was
he
it
was
Jason?
was he in Wolf of Wall Street?
yes, he was in
It is
Wolf
him.
of Wall.
What's his name?
What's
The,
it? I'm
the,
not
the comic
sure.
guy.
Oh.
He'd lost a lot
Jonah
of weight.
Hill.
Jonah Hill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So he basically sent his now ex a whole list
This
of
was when they were
things.
together.
Yeah, when they were together. Now they're not because, a list of all the things that she cannot do because he is sharing with her his boundaries. So he used therapy lingo
Yeah.
to then like list to her and she's a surfer or something,
She's
or
a professional surfer.
Okay.
you cannot be in a bikini, you cannot be
Excessive.
seen with other
Okay,
guys.
so caveat.
Yeah.
He didn't say it like that. You
No.
cannot do this. You cannot do that. He's like, this is my comfort zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
This is
if
making
you're-
me uncomfortable.
if you want to be with
if
me,
you're okay with that, then we can continue
Yeah.
our relationship.
Right,
So
okay.
he said it more gently. He didn't
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
it like, you can't do this.
Yeah.
Here's the 10 Commandments. He
Yeah.
didn't say it like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it is controlling, but at the same time, I admire him for knowing his boundaries and being upfront about
Yeah.
it. I disagree with her as well. I don't think this should have been in the
Oh,
public
100%
sphere
agree.
anyway.
Yeah.
100%
Because
agree.
he just had a baby with somebody else after they've broken up,
Oh, wow.
and she decides to release this. So now he's a
Pretty
baby daddy,
messy. Yeah.
and he's got a child out there. What's her reason
Yeah.
for doing that
Yeah.
to the public? You can have those private conversations. Anybody should be able to have a private
Yeah.
conversation. If I say
100% agree
you-
with that.
any relationship, you're going to have like, listen, this is how I feel and this is why. If we're going to go forward, this is what I would feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
Who knows why he had those stipulations? Like she could have been flirting and it was like really
Yeah, but
jealousy.
I think also from her side, 100% agree. I don't understand people that overshare on social media. Like,
Because
I'm
on a
like,
public forum.
This is after they broke up. Like, what is the point of?
Yeah, it's done.
Yeah.
Well,
Like,
you know.
why bring this to the surface?
Why?
like-
and you know he's a celebrity, so why
Yeah.
would you?
Just causes
but the
drama.
thing for me, like when I was looking, I go, I get you're setting your boundaries, but you're dating a woman that spends 90% of her time, her office is being bikini
Yeah.
and with other
On a
guys and
surfboard.
all this. You still decided. So it sort of goes back to that where you said it's 50-50. Everyone, the other person is not responsible
Yeah.
for that. And that's what triggered me to say that. I'm like, so I get that bold, great, these are my boundaries, but you're making someone else responsible for
Your drama, your history,
right.
your.
So that's
Yeah.
the bit that I found really interesting there.
What was her list that she gave back to him? We don't know.
We don't
Yeah.
know.
I don't think that's very fair.
Oh, I'm sure there was more. Like I said, putting it on the putting it on social media,
Yeah.
I don't agree with that. That I have a huge about.
Right. So if your partner, for example, you're dating somebody and they always get drunk, like beyond,
Yeah.
and then they mess up and then they like snog somebody or something, and you're like, okay, you know what? From now on,
Yeah.
here's my boundary. You cannot drink when we go out. Just you can't handle it, and maybe you have a problem, and maybe there's something in your history. Plus, my father was XYZ. Like
Yeah.
it's more than fine to say as an adult to another adult, here are my triggers.
Yeah.
Here is something that and be upfront about it. After the fact, it's not cool. But if you're having a conversation and if he took the time to write it down, I wish more guys were like that versus keeping it to themselves and not opening
and
up.
then being passive aggressive.
And
about
do you
it.
Yeah.
find that a lot of men do keep it to themselves?
Well, let's say a lot of people keep a lot of things to themselves. I
story,
don't want to
true.
say
Yeah.
gender, but it is
Yeah.
more ingrained socially for men to not
Yeah.
be as emotive.
Yeah, that's very fair.
It wasn't as
Socially- socially
accepted or
yeah.
whatever the word
Promoted.
would be. Yeah.
Yeah, but neither was women in the workforce, and that's
Yeah,
kind of
and
changed.
it's evolved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So going back to, you were talking about the matchmaking,
Yes.
dating.
How did we
There's
end up
this-
there? How did you end up?
Yeah.
It's
Woke up
so-
one day and said, you know what? I'm gonna my new serial entrepreneur project is gonna be matchmaking.
Well, I have always wanted to be a matchmaker because I was doing it anyway.
Okay.
Like back in New York when I was setting up my friends, you can see things. Not, it was more like, oh, this person, because they have the same energy, they
Yeah.
have the same values.
Yeah, there's a connection.
There's a connection.
It's a bit of a
There's
Korean
lot of-
thing as well, right?
it?
I don't know, but like it just, I don't know. I don't know why that sort of came to my mind because, like, I remember living in Korea, you had the onni goes, oh, you guys are, or
And that's every culture.
Yeah.
Matchmaking is
I
not a
thought
new
it was
thing.
beautiful. I
It's
thought I
not
used to
new.
think it was beautiful. It's like, get over it. You guys are good.
Well, it's a smaller society and everybody knows
Yeah.
each other.
Yeah.
So my father's one of 6, and all of his siblings have all been set up,
Aw.
arranged marriages. But like you meet them and you agree to it. It's not like
No.
you marry this person, bye bye.
No,
You have to.
Right
Yeah.
here, you have options,
Yeah.
and then all my cousins as well. And then it's not stranger to me. It's
No.
not like it's not just subcontinent. It's England as well has
Yeah.
matchmakers.
Yeah.
But I think there's a modern way of dating
Yeah.
as well. And my particular niche is people people that are expat professionals.
Yeah.
I would say 35 and above, although that's flexible because
Yeah.
sometimes like 35-year-olds want to date like 25-year-olds,
Mm.
for example. I'm not going to say no as long as you're an adult and you know yourself and everybody's different in that sense. But my niche is really expat professionals that have like one foot in one culture and another foot in another culture and find it really hard to balance that and meet somebody that's similar. It's a very particular type
Very
of thing.
particular.
Are you like reading my biography here?
Matchmaking. I was about to say.
Literally, well, yeah, born in Iran, grew up in Korea, calls Australia home, lived in London, moved here, not quite
Third
Australian.
culture kid.
Be more than third culture kid because I grew up as a Korean kid. When we first moved to Australia, I didn't want to be in Australia. I'm like, I want to go home.
Right.
That was the home, the culture, the understanding, the
Respect.
the respect, all of it.
Yeah.
That's something I grew up with, and it's quite ingrained. And like I said, I spoke fluent Korean. We didn't live the expat life in Korea. We weren't.
No.
I
were
lived.
Korean.
I lived in what was a Misong apartment. Like I looked over the 63 building. My friends were all Korean kids. We were
Right.
in the culture.
It wasn't as multicultural, let's say.
No, God,
right?
not at all. Not at all. So
But that's the
there's
Dubai
always-
story, by the way.
Yeah.
That's very, very,
Very
common.
Dubai.
You know.
So you mentioned previously about opportunity. So obviously you saw an opportunity
Yeah.
that was available,
Yes.
that
and
nobody was doing this
I think even
previously.
more during COVID,
Yeah.
where relationships and family it's everything.
Yeah.
You know, and I read these things from the BBC in England, but it's across all the cities about loneliness
Yeah.
and how detrimental it is to our longevity,
Mm-hmm.
our mental health. Obviously, the sadness. Like, what are we here for if we end up alone in like
True.
a beautiful little shoebox?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but
I think
the
that's what-
human connection.
I think that's one of the challenges with somewhere like Dubai, because most people come here for work or for opportunity and
ambition.
to better themselves and to, for ambition. And because it did have that transient nature, and obviously that's evolving, but it used to be really difficult to meet people here or meet people with longevity.
Still
Or
is.
is it really?
Yeah, it still is. But you don't realize how many people you meet.
Yeah.
And that's where your atomic habits come in, right? So you've read this book, or have you heard of
No.
this book, Atomic
Atomic
Habits?
Okay, no, never.
Okay, well, I'll send you the,
Okay,
the
yeah,
audiobook.
okay.
I love audiobooks and
Yep.
podcasts and
Nice.
podcasts, obviously.
Yeah, 91 hours.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So
sorry,
you saw an opportunity. When did you see you've always been a matchmaker
I've been a
regardless,
scout.
but what brought you to the
Yeah.
point to actually do this?
A couple of things. So it's a good question. I've been a regional scout for the past 7 years to an elite boutique agency that's based in London and New York, and I've been like, I want to open your office here. I want to do this.
As in scouting talent, or when you say regional scout?
singles.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they have a client that's looking for this type of person, you know, a Muslim person, you know, Muslim girl, Muslim guy, that kind of thing, and making those introductions. So you're spotting, and then you're making introductions, and it is very much like, well, I'll describe the process later, but to answer your question, so I was doing that for the past 7 years, and they didn't want to open here because of the grayness in the regulation, and which is still pretty gray,
Of course.
but regulations have become more progressive, where there's the golden visa, you can marry, you can live together and have children out of wedlock.
Yeah.
So this to me has said, okay, how are people meeting people?
Yeah.
Is it just through apps and then like maybe at a bar? It's completely random. And myself, I'm a single mother, right? I'm not looking for a baby daddy.
Yeah.
So I'm in a different strata. So I'm not like desperate. I'm not like, broody or anything like that. And I'm not looking for somebody to be my child's father either.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people out there like that. But I am looking for somebody that is filtered,
Yeah.
that isn't a danger or going to
course.
involve themselves in either my life and maybe later in my child's life, and they're not upstanding in some way. And there's no guarantee of that, but there's really no filter at all versus some filter.
Yeah.
And I'd rather there be, there's ghosting, there's all kinds
It's
of
horrific, the
catfishing.
stories I've heard.
So social media. So if you're looking at dating apps and stuff like that, obviously like catfishing is a massive thing.
Yeah.
People pretending to be someone that they're not. We mentioned Tinder swindler.
Yes, as
with
well.
with a matchmaking entity. You mentioned filtering, so obviously it's like a pre-qualification.
Yes.
There must be some sort of kind of background check
you
for
police check.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I mean, in the States and in Europe, you have like more of an authority where you can check their credit
Yeah, you
out.
can actually, yeah.
Yeah, here you don't have that.
Yeah.
So you do other kinds of things, like you meet them in person. I get their ID, make sure they are who they are through, sleuthing as well, connections, and especially the type of person that I deal with. They have a reputation. They're upstanding for some reason, right? And that's important to me. Otherwise, if they seem like I can't work with them, there's no reason for me to work
What's your
with them.
strike rate?
Huh?
What's your strike rate
What does that mean?
of matchmaking, of
Success rate.
Success rate, yeah.
Well, this is about a year old at this point. Not
Okay.
even.
But like in general, because you've said you've been matchmaking friends and stuff for years.
Oh yeah, but it wasn't like a process.
Yeah.
You know, I went and got my certifications. I have 3 mentors, one of which is like over 30 years in the industry.
There's a certification.
There's certifications.
But this is
yeah.
like a fully fledged industry, essentially.
100%, and it's an important one.
Yeah, it's actually because I'm
Very well. It's core to our being.
It's more important than having a job because you can change jobs, right?
Yeah.
Well, you can change partners too, but the
But
idea is not to.
I'm literally sat here thinking, because obviously, we work in a very fast-paced environment. It is actually difficult to meet people, especially, I guess,